And we are live. Welcome everybody to the sports sponsorship morning coffee. I already messed that up. It's a little bit early here on the West Coast. Excited today. We have a great guest, John Clemmons, down at, and I always mess this up, the Down Eastwood Ducks. Correct? That's the team name in MILB.
Correct.
Awesome.
Correct.
Thanks so much, John, for joining us. Really excited to jam with you. Again, my goal with a lot of this live content we do with people is just to get a ton of sort of information from people around the industry, what they're doing to solve some of the problems within this crazy, unprecedented times right now. So excited to kind of, just hear what you guys are doing. I know we were just kind of talking about right before we got on how you all are, or you had the advice of sort of not making too many quick sort of plans and kind of seeing how things are going to shake out and really being strategic on that. Can you kind of dive into just that end about how your thought process around, waiting a little bit on some things, seeing how things shake out before you're just implementing tactics?
Yeah, I think so. We spent 5 or 6 months in the off season putting these plans in place and developing a schedule. Pretty much, lining up 12 weekends of fun promotions and items that we would give away. And, we're going to try to piece as many of those as we can together and still do those elements once we have a new schedule. So, when everything started to really shut down, middle of March, that's a lot of work that kind of went by the wayside for the time being. So I think it was important to just not necessarily make a quick decision to cancel everything and kind of run away from the problem, but to more or less understand the problem and understand the longevity of the problem, and use communication to ride through that. And we're continuing to do that right now. Is just working with people and making sure that we understand where they're coming from, and likewise on their end with us, and just to get through the situation until baseball returns.
Yeah, and it was a little bit of a, we work with some minor league teams. We were just about to get season started. It was right around the corner. My plane tickets were bought for opening season, and we promised sponsors, inventory and engagement, and then obviously this shook out so quickly. For you, what's been the biggest struggle in either chatting with partners or make goods? What's been the biggest struggle for you all, and how have you kind of worked through that piece?
I think for me personally, I think it's understanding hey, there is a solution through all of this. It may not be the outcome that you're looking for now, but have 4 or 5 different options, whether it's for sponsorships or groups or corporate events. Basically have a game plan of 4 or 5 items that you can go to the table with once we do have a schedule. And just understanding that and making sure that they understand that. That's been the biggest transition for me, is to making sure that even though everything's uncertain, but still have somewhat of a plan in place for when the time comes.
Yeah, and have sponsors. It's obviously going to be sponsor to sponsor, but have sponsors been pretty? I wouldn't say excited, but still kind of on game plan, game path of, hey, games probably are coming back. We don't have to switch up too many things. Obviously, again, your restaurant partners are really probably working toward, hey, how do we get people into our store? But have too many of, I guess, assets shifted, or has it been a kind of, hey, let's wait and see, we're still pretty committed to this?
Relatively speaking, I think everyone's still pretty committed to what they have. I haven't seen hardly any assets change right now. I'm sure that will happen once we get closer to a start date. I would say probably 90% of the sponsors I've talked to are still on board and, just riding it out like us. I've had
Mhm.
one or two, try to pull the reins and figure out an exit strategy. And that's been challenging because it's out of our control.
Mhm.
But I get it too. It's a financial situation that, they're trying to cut expenses just like we did. I mean,
Yep.
um, so it's a balance of that. But overall, I would say about 90% of the folks are heavily on board.
Nice. That's awesome to hear. What's really different about this, and I've been looking a lot at the '08 recession. That was the financial one. What's really different in this, especially working with brands, is, there is a pandemic associated with it, which just means we're getting used to social distancing. How, I guess, fully accurate these stats are, we'll see, but, we're seeing a lot of stats of maybe sports fans will be a little bit reluctant to come back out to the ballpark. Are you doing anything to kind of address that? Trying to get fans, totally fine with coming back out to the ballpark, enjoying the game, and then also convincing partners, hey, we won't have a ghost town here. There will still be people interacting with your assets and all of that.
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and um, I was thinking about that a lot this morning in terms of like us being in such a small rural town
Hmm.
with you know coming to a Wood Ducks game or eating at the Chef and the Farmer, one of our staples in town. Like those are two major things to do here in Eastern North Carolina, and I understand the bigger picture of the whole situation, but I think our fan base will be eager to come out and support the live sporting events.
Hmm.
I don't know how that will kind of transition across the globe with the pandemic, but I think here with us, people will be excited about getting out to the ballpark.
Yeah. And I saw on Twitter you all did, I think it was a Pepsi Saturday sort of activation. So you're definitely still engaging with partners. Um, have you seen partners have more of an interest kind of toward some of your digital assets than maybe they had in the past, just because of they have to be now, whereas in the past
Yeah,
they kind of said, hey, I like some of this digital stuff. It seems pretty cool and innovative. Now I'm going to kind of shift over, but it's not fully right for us, and obviously now it's kind of some of the only things we have. Have you seen sort of I guess, a more acceptance of some of your sponsored tweets and things like that from partners?
yeah, I think they've started to take notice, whereas in the past, it's kind of a nice gesture that we did. But one thing we focused on from a social media standpoint was we started um, on a daily basis. Our daily promotions we basically activated virtually. So
Hmm.
our dogs at the ballpark promotion and our dollar hot dogs. We asked people to tag their pets and show pictures of their pets on our Mondays, just like if they were bringing their pet here to the ballpark, similar to the
Hmm.
Pepsi Saturday promotion you saw. Um, and then thinking back to your question, I noticed a few sponsors started to follow us back or started to like us back on the different platforms
Nice.
after we started promoting them uh, during this time. So I thought that was pretty interesting to see.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Kind of shifting gears, I've been getting a ton of questions from, and I have a ton of empathy for them. There's a new crop of sports business, fresh out of college, I guess, kids, for lack of a better term, who were excited and ready to try and find a job within sports. And then this
Yeah.
all sort of happened. Um, do you have any kind of advice for them, whether it's learning new things or getting connected with people within sports? Do you have any advice for them as they're trying to break into sports when sports are kind of shut down and not running?
Yeah, certainly a interesting time. Like whenever I was entering the sports world, I graduated in 2008, so I did an internship with the Carolina Mudcats in '07, and then graduated in '08, and pretty much went in full time at that point with them. So it's kind of a similar financial situation. I'd never realized what I was working through at the time, but I start to understand it now.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of advice, I think it's important to truly not give up. That's one theme I've tried to ride the whole time through my 14 years of working in minor league baseball, is just not to quit.
Mm-hmm.
I started out doing a free internship at the time, working that summer, basically getting paid with promotional items, and then working several odd jobs to pay rent and whatnot. But for the time being, I would say for them to continue to pursue their goals of working in sports, but also pick up a few side jobs as they can right now.
Yeah, especially maybe at a sponsor, so you can understand their business model a little bit more, and how to kind of connect with them. Kind of going a little bit back to sponsorship. I know for in baseball, it was pretty much, hey, contracts are getting pretty set, and we're not prospecting and reaching out. So maybe it's not quite a fit kind of for your league, but do you have any thoughts or strategy just around prospecting right now? I've heard kind of 50-50. One side of the deal in sponsorship has just been, hey, other than if we can help our current partners, we're not doing too much outbound just because it's a tough time. Or some have said, B, hey, I do have some assets that can really help. Any thoughts kind of about prospecting right now, how to do it, just as outreach to partners or potential partners?
Yeah, I'll kind of piggyback off of one of your segments. And I was, to be honest with you, I was struggling with it yesterday. So, when I watched it last night, but I'm kind of in that process right now of prospecting and searching for new leads that I hadn't reached out to.
Mm-hmm.
But like, for instance, yesterday, it was a mental struggle. Just trying to piece it all together. And I think you said, just do something. And looking back on yesterday, like, that was really my goal, was just to do something, things. And I think it made coming into work today a little easier, to know, like, hey, I'm going to be productive today. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to lay out a few new areas close to the ballpark and try to get as many leads as possible.
Yeah, to be honest, and again, at Squad, we help with digital activations, which are so important right now. I've even struggled with that of, hey, do I reach out to a sports team, even though I know my product can really help them right now, just because, to be honest, there's a lot of bad operators out there sending out really bad sales emails, and it's really easy to kind of not want to get pushed into that piece. And if I was still selling sponsorship, I would think the same thing. There's probably a lot of bad advertising operators out there who are, really using the pandemic, the coming recession, as a way to try to get short-term sales. But at the same time, especially in sports teams, you have access to an influence over fans, and that's massively powerful to a restaurant, to where they didn't think they needed it, but now they really need it. So it's been, for me, it's been going 50-50. Do I reach out? Obviously not reaching out and saying, hey, buy right now, but kind of reaching out and saying, hey, I can help. I'm here if you kind of need it. And being very specific. I think for us, we're doing some outbound, just saying, hey, look, I noticed you had this sponsor and your season got shut down. Do you have any make goods for them? I think in sponsorship sales, same way. Hey, we noticed that you all are only doing takeout orders. I know you haven't partnered with us in the past, but we have this really low cost package. We'll even do, 2 freebie social posts. Can we help? I think that's the biggest struggle right now, is you don't want to come in and seem too sales pushy, especially at a time like this. But, obviously, the goal in sales should be to help. And that's, I think, overall in the industry, that's been a struggle, just for, people trying to decide whether to outbound, and push on that. I'm intrigued for you all, especially being sort of a smaller community. How much do you think sort of long-term the pandemic affects? Do you think sort of, hey, if fans are really going to be hesitant to come to the ballpark, it's going to be, at first, and then we're going to have an increase? Or do you kind of think it'll be, hey, everybody's going to come to the ballpark, we'll see a little bit of a lull and then spike up? Or what do you kind of predict as a trend for your fans coming back and being supportive, and again being in the ballpark and around other fans?
Yeah, I think in this area in general, people are cost conscious. I mean,
Mhm.
a dollar is valued, and coming out of this, I think people will be excited to come out to the ballpark. And it may kind of go down a little bit as the season progresses, and hopefully kicks back in once things financially become better and more stable.
Mhm.
I guess more like a Nike swoosh.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, I'm intrigued on that from a sports side, just because, I do think people will come back and be excited to get baseball and back in the ballpark. But then again, like kind of as you said, we're entering not only just getting people back from social distancing to, financial situation is going to be a little bit different, and how those behaviors change will be pretty interesting. Well, that's all the questions I have for you, John. Any questions for me? Any kind of thoughts around sponsorship, or we haven't gotten any comments or questions from the from LinkedIn, but any questions for me? Anything you're struggling with on sponsorship?
One thing I was going to mention, tied into the food related sponsors. One thing we've done the past few weeks is basically target our partners and promote them, and we spaced it out. We did like Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And what we did was we think of like a Topps 1960s, 1970s retro card.
Mm-hmm.
We put the sponsor picture on the front with the tagline of "Shop Local," support those who support us,
Mm-hmm.
and their name, and then on the back, all the facts and stats of what you see on the back of a baseball card, were their hours,
Nice.
their method of pickup, their menu options, if phone number, details on the back, and those went over really well. And I noticed a few of our food related sponsors didn't follow us or like us back on social media. They started to follow us, and so that was pretty cool to see.
Nice. And again, maybe being a smaller community, businesses know who you are, but have you seen any sort of uptick in interest from other partners? Obviously, this might not be the time that they're really thinking kind of, hey, I saw this trading card activation or highlight. Have you seen any kind of uptick from anybody who's not a partner kind of come in and be interested in that piece?
Not yet,
Mm-hmm.
but I think they're good samples of things we can do that we haven't done before, and
Mm-hmm.
that we can use as like to show people, hey, this is what we can do. This is the traction we got off of these elements. It was nice to see, in the comments where the sponsors thanked us and that sort of thing, or fans who had come to the ballpark and eaten at those restaurants, making comments like, hey, you should definitely stop the game and that sort of thing. So they
Yeah.
appreciated it.
Definitely. No, I'm excited. I kind of said this on a last live segment, but what we do today for our partners is going to be remembered for decades. And that's just one of those things where, in their biggest time of need, creating really engaging, creative, pieces like that is really going to help. So kudos to you all. Definitely keep rocking in, keep that content coming out on that end. John, thanks so much for joining us this morning. Really appreciate it. Excited for some of the insights. We'll definitely kind of replay this and cut some of this up, but really appreciate your time this morning. And appreciate the time kind of in this pandemic and taking a few minutes out just to kind of share some of your ideas and thoughts.
Absolutely. I do have a question for you though.
Oh yeah, perfect.
How would, like, in terms of amount of engagements, like, let's say, you know, we're going on a month here and you've talked to a sponsor 1, 2, 3 times, like, not only for me, but for your younger self, how often or amount of engagements would you recommend, or is there a number, or what would you suggest?
Yeah, I've been struggling with this because I think right now the old adage of, every week until you get an answer being that kind of hard lined, I'm not sure it would work as well today. I think what's really intriguing is we're actually getting some responses from some of the clients we work with, hey, do you have any new activations? And the main reason is because they want to have something to be able to bring to their partner if they're going to do sort of that check-in or that new prospect check-in. So I think in the same light, we always want to be helpful. What I don't think we'll do too well right now will be the, hey, how, did you get my email last week? What did you think of this? Instead, fully understanding and saying, hey, I understand that, you're running a business. You're really trying to survive. I had this new idea for you. Do you think this would be a fit? And I think potential partner will appreciate that a lot more of, getting creative. Hey, I just wanted to shoot you over these trading card ideas because you're a restaurant or because you're a retailer, and I think it would be great for restaurants as well. Hey, we did a Pepsi Saturday and it worked really well with the engagement. Is, reaching people on the weekends, so can we do a Sunday activation? I think the more you bring them kind of creative ideas, the more it's you kind of thinking of, hey, how can I help you through this? Here's a few ideas. And obviously strategically don't come in on the first email and say, here's 10 ideas I have for you, just because, that's another outbound that you can kind of do. But I think right now it's, the old adage, and I used to do this when I was heavy in, the 100, 200 calls a day, was you call somebody, then the formula is 3 days later, you call them and see if they got your original proposal. And then 4 days later, you call them and the original proposal, almost being a little pesky like that in sales, I think will be detrimental. I think, there's definitely not a limit for how many times you can reach out, but I try to have something a little bit new every time when you reach out of an idea, so that, okay. I don't think it's the same reason why, when I sign up for a newsletter for, let's say marketing, I'm expecting kind of new ideas each week that are going to be helpful. Now, whether it's an idea through your team, whether it's, hey, I noticed that, for construction, some people were doing really well on Craigslist during the pandemic, just wanted to shoot this over to you to kind of get that over to you. So I think the big thing right now will be how helpful can you be? And then from there, strategically for you, again, don't just come in with a list of 20 activation ideas, just because that'll be information overload anyway. First outreach is, hey, I totally get that you're looking at a ton of other things and trying to keep your business alive. I just want to let you know about this activation we have. One, I'd like to give you the first post for free, even though you're not a sponsor. Second, we have really low cost on it. It's $150 per post, with a minimum of 5 posts. My goal is to get people into your restaurant. Is that a goal for you? And then, maybe the next week, hey, I just want to reach out here. I was thinking about your business, and I thought that, if we did if we tied it to our, our Monday dog in the park activation, it's some fan generated content. We can put a cut up of everything and have your logo there and somehow tie it back into getting people into your restaurant. If I was selling sponsorship, that's kind of how I try to space it out of, hey, here's this activation. I don't know if it's going to help right now, but I'm going to keep hitting you with ideas until hopefully one hits. And at the very least, if you think back and none of them were great, what they're going to say to other partners behind your back after isn't going to be, hey, that salesperson reached out 50 times with just the hey, checking in, hey, checking in. It was, we didn't say yes to any of it, but man, some of those ideas were great, and I appreciate them reaching out with new ideas. So I think it's not necessarily number of engagements, but just what you're bringing to the table a little bit, how you can bring some ideas, and even just a great sounding board of, hey, we're thinking of doing this activation. Do you think this would be good for you all? Do you have some feedback? If you're interested, I'd love to talk with you about implementing. And that's going to be a good, at least from the sponsorship side, maybe not the fan side, but at least from the sponsorship side, saying, hey, I think this might be a great idea for you. What do you think? And they'll give you feedback of, no, I don't think we can drive takeout orders with that. That means the next restaurant you go to, you're not pitching the same thing where somebody in the industry told you that. So, again, if I was selling sponsorship, I would just kind of stockpile all my activations, and every time I reach out, more of a, hey, I have another idea for you, just because I don't think anybody's gonna be upset with the number of ideas you bring to them. I think what's going to be a little detrimental is going to be reaching out and just saying, we have packages, we have digital. Hey, did you get my email last week? We have digital packages. Hey, did you get my email last week? I think that's going to be sort of the bad operators that are really going to hurt us. And that's my biggest struggle, again, as I said, in sales right now. For the people who do it really well, is going to be, there's a lot of people doing it really poorly out there, and you're going to get thrown into that mix of, oh my gosh, here's another sales email from somebody. But I think you want them to be like pleasantly surprised when they open it, of, wow, this really was creative, and they actually took the time to say, I noticed that you're 6 blocks away from the ballpark. What if we did a ballpark drive-by in the quarantine where everybody stayed in their cars and waved at the ballpark, brought to you by this sponsor. By the way, on your way home, go get some takeout orders. You get 10% off of your order. So I think really taking the time to think of those activations and how they relate to that sponsor, they'll be really pleasantly surprised when they open that email to say, that is intriguing. I think I will do that. Or, also the long run. I mean, if you email somebody 10 times during this time and they don't respond, but you gave them 10 different activations, I think you're in a lot better position to email them when things get back to normal and just say, hey, we threw 10 ideas at you, pre-pandemic. I'm hoping you have a little bit more time now. Do you have some time to chat? We can still implement some of these digital pieces. So yeah, I think that was a long-winded answer to, I think, definitely not so much quantity, but sort of quality on that quantity. You definitely shouldn't just send 2 emails if you really think you can help. But every email, just make sure you're bringing some sort of thing that's really going to help, whether it's helping right now or helping in the future, to where, at the very least, if they feel annoyed by these emails, they're like, well, I didn't really appreciate them sending emails, but I will say they were creative and they were trying to help, as opposed to, hey, this guy was just trying to, still hit his sales quota. And that's the reason why I got those. And you've got, I'm sure in sports, you get all the time from companies like myself trying to sell those sports teams, where you open the email and it's abundantly clear, I'm just trying to sell you something. I don't really care if, hey, can you sell more concessions? And you're like, well, we don't own our concessions. So, no, you didn't do your research and see that. We don't do that. So I think in the same way of that, kind of thinking about that for your partners, of really trying to solve a problem for them right now, getting creative on how you do it, and just doing a little bit of research on what they're going through, so that when they do open that email, the one shot you have, it's going to be a good experience, whether they purchase from you or not.
That's fantastic. I mean, from my takeaway on that is just have some substance, whether you're reaching out to say hello, but always have substance in your contacts.
Yeah, there's a lot of, it's interesting sort of sales hive mindset. There's a lot of hope you're healthy, hope you're safe, I'm here for you. And it's and there's been and the reason why is there's been a lot of sort of blog articles that say you should be doing that. And of course you really do hope they're healthy and hope they're safe, but that doesn't solve my problem right now. I mean, again, for a hotel
Don't bring
partner,
in dollars.
exactly, for a hotel partner who's sitting empty, I would imagine their marketing person's like, man, when we get open, we have to make up for all these sales that we lost. So, understanding that, they can't, going in and saying, hey, can we do some social posts that then lead to a sale, to book a room? Well, let's be honest, nobody's booking rooms at hotels right now. But what I can do is do an activation or a sweepstakes where we're collecting email leads so that I can make sure that, whatever you push out first when things come back, that it's going to be stronger than when you started in what I'm selling you on data leads and really understanding. So yeah, I mean, substance is so important right now for the reason why you're reaching out. I'd also argue if you can't find a good reason to reach out to that partner, let's say it's a manufacturer and there's literally no activation you can think of that can help their goals, then I'm not sure if I would reach out other than to say, hey, you're a local business. We appreciate you and the jobs that you've, kept open and kept people working here because you've been a necessity or necessary essential job. I want to give you 10 free tickets just to give to your workers. And that's the long-term play, right? Right now, it's not going to help your sales goal, but just those 10 tickets are going to help in the long run to say, again, wow, they didn't even come in for a sale right now. They fully came just with value and appreciation, and that's going to help you sell longer in the long term. But yeah, just sending an email for email's sake to say, hey, how can I help? Just do a little research. There's a lot of common themes right now. Restaurants need takeout sales just because nationally on average they're down 60% in orders. So obviously that's a huge part of their revenue. Again, car dealerships, they don't really need people at their dealerships because they can't have them. So how can you set them up for the future? I think if you really try and understand those problems even before you send that first email, those 10 emails of activation ideas are just going to be so much better in the long run.
Thank you. That's solid.
Yeah, awesome. Any other questions? I'm surprised we haven't gotten any questions from the from LinkedIn. Usually people are jumping on to ask. Any other questions? Anything you're struggling with on your guys' end?
Just in general, like minor goal. I mean, in some regards, we are a small business and similar to those restaurants and coming back in a few months, we have not been generating revenue like if we would on a game day. So do you have any advice to not only us, but like other minor league baseball teams that are kind of riding through this and, basically waiting to open the gates?
Yeah, in the tough thing, and I'll be honest with you right now at Squad, I mean, we do monthly activation. So if teams aren't playing, we're not sending invoices. And it's, for us, it's been, how can we be helpful with our product and generate sales? So I've been intrigued. I don't know if you all do any auction items, but auction items is a great way to generate revenue right now, whether that's giving 25% to a cause and then keeping the other 25%. And I don't think fans would have too much of a problem if you just flat out said, hey, we're your local baseball team. As you can imagine, we're hurting right now. We're doing an auction, and this auction really is to help with payroll and to keep our staff, here and working for you and getting the season ready. I think a lot of fans won't be upset with you doing that toward an auction. Yeah. Entry fees for sweepstakes, the same way. I mean, right now, really sponsorship is going to be your main revenue driver. But I think overall, just kind of look and see, hey, where are some places that we can generate revenue? Other than season tickets, could you offer, future options on tickets? Just meaning, hey, we're going to have 10 game packs. They're going to be pretty cheap right now. Fully transparently, this is just to help us fund some operations. I'd also be intrigued if you did let's say a 20 section pay what you think is best sort of activation that just says, hey, we trust you all as fans. We have seats of this one section, 20 seats. The minimum you can pay for is $1, but it's sort of that kind of trust of, hey, I'll give you the average ticket price for it, but we want to see you back out of the ballpark. It's pay what you think is best. We're doing this just because we need to generate some revenue. I'd be intrigued to see coffee shops have worked off that model, and for every 50 cent or no pay, there's a $300 person paying. So I think that mixed with, it's just, if you're going to look at ticketing revenue, what are some certain ways that you can focus in on that that you can almost make it as, hey, again, be totally transparent. We're struggling a bit. We're a smaller team. We love being a part of this community. We continue to support our partners. For that reason, we have this 20-seat section. Pay what you think is right. We'll pretty much close it when 20 seats are done and do that each week. And then, another idea maybe is just having a sponsor that. Hey, we're trying to get, 50 kids out from this elementary school to the game. Our goal is that, in this tough time of, at least in Oregon, there's distance learning where they're doing this with their teacher on the screen. We want to do is we don't want to go to teachers at the middle school, the high school, and the elementary school and have them nominate 2 kids to be able to, have tickets back to the first game. So 3 tickets, total, just a parent and a child, and then go to partners or go to community members and say, does anybody who would be willing to kind of, bad term, but adopt a kid, right? Like almost, hey, we're trying to send these kids back just because they enjoy and love baseball and they've really excelled in the classroom. And again, for you all, that generates revenue now, right? It's almost the same thing of how can you? A lot of businesses, retail and restaurant, are really trying to drive gift card revenue because it's almost an interest-free loan on that end to where eventually you have to fulfill it. But it's cash in the bank right now. I think, how can you get a little creative with some of those, paying now to then get tickets later, and again, giving some sort of incentive, whether that's selling some tickets to be able to help get some kids back in the ballpark and have some families enjoy it, whether that's being a little crazy and creative in offering that piece. I think the team over at Savannah Bananas put it very well toward the pay what you think is best. Is they offer all you can eat in this one section for free. And people thought they were crazy. They were like, you're going to lose a ton of money. People are just going to eat and eat and eat. And what they found was there were very few people who they lost money on, just meaning, generally people will do the right thing. I think if you did a thing, hey, 20 tickets, minimum's $1, pay what you think's best, give them some information on that average ticket. You're gonna get some people who pay the $1, which is totally fine. You're getting them back in the ballpark. I think you also get some people who pay twice the price. And that just goes back to, if I'm ordering out or if I'm picking up at a restaurant, I'm tipping. Like I tried to tip. Funny enough, I tried to tip more than the item, and the system wouldn't let me do it because they thought, hey, if you're going to give a tip more than the item, this is the waiter or waitress trying to, you didn't sign the tip thing and they're trying to tip more. But but yeah, in the same way that, we are all humans and have empathy. I think in the same way of that, if you give fans the option of 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 not being bad operators, where everybody buys just the $1 ticket, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised to find some fans might even pay $200, where that's 5 times the ticket price. And again, that's going to help really, really drive really drive people coming back to the ballpark, but drive some revenue right now. Obviously, if somebody pays 4 times that price, hook them up with a hat and say thank you so much for helping us out. But
and a t-shirt.
Yeah, but I think that's, short-term revenue wise, just try and really focus on some of the things that you can generate cash today, and really try to think outside of the box, where there's a perfect opportunity to say, we would never do this if everything was great and people were purchasing. Let's test this out. And this may be a campaign that you all live off of for 10 years, whether it's good times or bad times, just because it's so successful toward the community.
Follow-up question to that. Would you target specific days, like, premium nights, like 5 premium nights during the year, selling those blocks of 20, or how would you?
Yeah, I would definitely look at your numbers of what you already have sold, obviously. But if you did a premium night, maybe that minimum be a bit higher. If you did like a Wednesday night, maybe give them some options. Say, hey, one, I wouldn't put all these tickets up at the same time, just because you want to create some sort of urgency and fear of missing out. I was a big A's fan growing up in Oakland. A's did dollar Wednesday tickets. There was only like 3,000 of them. So you had to be on your computer or at the box office, or, way back in the day, my dad's sitting there ready to call his ticket rep and say, hey, did I get the dollar tickets? I'm trying to bring my family out. And I think that urgency is really what pushed dollar days, which were like every Wednesday that there was a home game. I think if you did that, where you said, hey, look, Wednesday games, our minimum is going to be $1, a more premium firework bobblehead night, we're doing 20 tickets. The minimum on that's going to be $4. I don't think people will have a problem with that. I think you'll also be able to steer some segments for the people who really can't, or don't see the value in the $4 ticket. Instead of just saying, oh, well, it's a $4 ticket, I can't purchase this. You're offering them a $1 option. Granted, it's on a Thursday or a Wednesday, and they're going to have to adjust. But I skipped many a school days for those dollar day tickets, just because my dad was like, "Hey, let's go. Let's go do this. Let's go to this game."
I think it paid off.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's I would have different sort of price points, because then again, also you're also going to get the person who's going to say, I really like this campaign, but I don't know if I want to go to a Wednesday or Thursday game, but I would do, the $4 for this premium game. And then again, I think overall you'll be pleasantly surprised. Obviously, also, this is why you don't offer it all at once. If the first 3 times you offer this, everybody's paying minimal price, from a cash flow perspective, you have to sit back and say, okay, how much are we losing on this campaign compared to if we just sat back and waited till games got back, right? So yeah. I would test it out a bit to make sure that people aren't taking too much advantage. I also think this will be a great study into the price sensitivity of your market, right? If you really are getting a ton of people only buying $1 tickets and not buying $4 tickets, then, as a staff, you kind of got to sit down and say, we're going to have to do a decent amount more promotions, because if nobody is kind of stepping up and has the cash to, again, I feel humans are innately good. And I feel if you had the cash, you would pay the 5 times the ticket price in order to help out. But if really you have nobody doing that, then I think more so it's a cash thing, where, or people holding cash because they're worried about the future. I think that's going to be great data toward when we do get back into the swing of things. Can we offer some different, can we offer the same price and expect to sell out? Do we have to offer, buy a ticket and you get a free hot dog, or, buy a ticket and buy a hot dog and we'll give you a $2 rebate or something like that? My struggle with these kind of ticketing things for discounts always is your season ticket holders who have already purchased these tickets are the ones that usually complain about that, and rightly so. I mean, they've been loyal partners. The only thing that I used to combat this with whenever we used to do some sort of ticketing thing in the brief time I sold tickets was I would always highlight the fact that they got player appearances, they got autographs, they got, their schedules were hand delivered, and just said, hey, look, I understand, you're a little upset on the price on this, but the value you're getting from being a season ticket holder is pretty high. You're getting the new hat, you're getting the new package of this, season ticket holder only. I know here in town in the Winterhawks, they do, a huge session with all the players and even some of the alumni. So I think if you are worried about kind of people pushing back and saying, well, I just bought season tickets, why are all these people kind of getting this discount? Just reminding them that, one, the team is struggling a bit. This is tough times, and there's been some things we've had to do cash flow wise. But number two is really, really focusing in on how can I show you that there's going to be a lot of value on that. And because, if you look, and again, I've been studying kind of recessions lately. If you look at the companies that succeed in recessions, they don't necessarily always drop their price. They usually just give more value. So you feel like, hey, I'm still paying $25 for this ticket per game, but I'm getting, a host that knows my name and greets me at the door, and, a special hat edition that we didn't get last year, and, a laminated food card that's good for one hot dog, every game that I go to. That's where, if really there's some struggles with selling tickets, bringing the price down will be good for those short-term activations like we talked about. Here's the section. The minimum you can pay is $1. But I think overall, the bigger thing will be for your season ticket holders who have the cash. How can I bring them so much value this year that, hey, I'm paying $26, but I get this, this, and this, instead of, hey, I'm paying $26, but I still have to pay for the food, and, we didn't have this or we didn't have that. Again, this all matters kind of financially. You gotta have some number crunchers kind of come in and say, hey, will this put us in a huge hole that we can't, what can we give so that we don't financially say, I just purchased 5,000 hats that I have to give to season ticket holders, and that, financially didn't work out. But I think that's the big piece toward, if you are going to give some discounts for season ticket holders, focus on the reason why you're still paying full price. The reason why you're staying loyal and buying all these tickets is because you're getting such a good deal and taken care of so well that, not that the person who buys the $1 ticket gets treated really badly in your ballpark, but, you were loyal, you stayed with us, you kept paying that price. I'm really going to reward you for being that partner.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah. But I am intrigued. That's the biggest struggle for smaller teams. Ticketing sponsorship is just cash flow. How do you save cash flow now without hard selling, and in our particular case on ticketing, without us knowing when games are coming back? So I think that's going to be a key piece. We got our first comment. Rich Franklin over at the Winterhawks I work with, he jumped on. He had the idea of bundling $1 games with premium games. So putting it out there that says, hey, look, if you buy this premium game at this, pay your, choose what you pay, you also have the ability to buy this $1 game where somebody else wouldn't be able to, right? So almost saying that in order to unlock the $1 game, you have to do this sort of premium game on that end. That's great kind of idea there. Overall it's just getting creative, right? Just, there's no stupid ideas unless they're really stupid for the times, just meaning, obviously you don't hand cold call every person in the city and say, why aren't you buying our tickets? We need to be saved. We need to help, you need to save us. More so just, again, I think there's no problem with being a little bit transparent and saying, hey, as we're a community baseball team. We're not the Mets. We're really looking for ways to kind of help support the team and support the staff here. Here's an auction. Half the proceeds are going toward, helping keep staff payroll open. I don't think there's any problem with being transparent about the team. In fact, it might even build better fans, because I know if I did an auction to help keep them open, then I wouldn't worry. It's the same way that I'm doing more takeout than I ever have here in Portland, because I fully understand that there might be some restaurants that aren't here after this. And if I can do something, if I can buy a $10 gift card that I may never use because, I love this restaurant, but I don't get out to this part of town that much, I'll buy it and I'll have no problem on that end. So I think transparently just, putting it out there, not that, hey, oh my gosh, we need your help, or, going out there with strength and just saying, hey, look, we love being your community baseball team. We're doing an auction to help payroll. As you know, ticketing dollars and sponsorship dollars are down. Here's an auction. Also, we're offering this sort of ticketing section piece with $1 games. Here are a few ways that we're really trying to be in tune with the community. I think that messaging will go a long way, and I think it only strengthens your fan to say, I was the person who was able to help save, this team.
Makes it relatable.
Exactly, right? When I go back to the ballpark, I have pride in that. Another idea too is I'm thinking back to when my high school was rebuilt. My parents bought a brick that has my name on it and my brother's name on it, and they put that kind of in the walkway. I'm thinking there too, you wouldn't have to do a brick thing, but imagine if instead of a outfield signage, you basically said, hey, look, here's this outfield signage. It'll be right next to, the left foul pole. It's going to have all the names and organizations of people who bought this, and we'll focus in on it before every game, whether that's our live stream, whatever. Again, that sign maybe costs you $500. So obviously do the math and say, like, look, if the sign costs this to print, what does it cost here to do this? I know for the Winterhawks, if Rich is still on, every before playoffs, they have Toyota buy sort of a rink board, and then fans are able to sign it so that the team can kind of look at the rink board and say, hey, I'm playing for these fans, right? And even doing a tribute where before the first pitch, the players run over to that sign and, give it a tap as like a thank you community for kind of being here. I think that's another cash flow thing to where you can bring in some probably pretty decent incremental revenue, where it's more of an emotional thing, where if I'm a fan, what I'm getting back is walking over near that sign and saying my name was there, as opposed to, hey, I'm going to purchase something and get something back. So I think a mix of all of those things, you'll be able to say, hey, where revenue do we need to be to not survive, but make it? And then what are some things where I can put, the emotion on the fan to say, hey, emotionally, you're purchasing this to feel good about helping the team. What are some activations to where, hey, I'm giving you a great deal, and I'm hoping that you pay a little bit more, in the same way I'm double tipping to restaurant owners, because I understand that, they have to pay their staff, and that's like me buying 2 items. I think if you can play into that community piece, I think it'll be pretty successful, and maybe one of them tanks, another one does decently well, and then another one just sort of fully takes off. I think that's probably what's going to happen, as opposed to everybody loving every idea. But again, just offering some of these things to your fans to be able to say, hey, just like you, we're struggling a bit. We'd love to have you back at the ballpark. Here are 3 ways you can help our team out, but also, help yourself out on that end.
No, those are great ideas. I could foresee us doing a few of those.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to hopefully see one of them come to fruition and pop up. But yeah, I think overall it's just, how creative can you get with some of that stuff? How creative can you get, again, as long as it's not causing detriment to your team or your brand of your team, how ingrained right now can you get within your community to say, these are tough times. We're going to be here. Here's a few ways. Because again, the people who you are helping out who actually buy the $1 ticket are really going to love, the team, because in their time of need, they were able to buy, an outing with their family when they normally couldn't afford it. On the total flip side of that, if you're doing fine and you have cash flow and, you still have a steady job, if I can purchase something that gives back to that, I get the same good feeling for helping as I do for receiving that help. So I think that's when you're creating kind of these ideas, those are the two emotions I would have segmented. What are some ways that fans who do have the cash flow to help, I want to make them feel good about and almost brag about how they're helping. And then on the flip side, how many community members are really struggling? How can we help them out? Maybe with the assistance of some of the people who are doing better.
Yeah, I mean, it's truly mutually beneficial.
Yeah. But what I'm excited for as well is some of these activation ideas will only be pandemic, shut down great ideas, but they could also flourish. I mean, again, Rich at the Winterhawks does that signed Toyota rink board every time they go to the playoffs. Luckily, it's been like the last 4 or 5 years. But that is now a staple for the fans, where I'm sure it was an idea of like, hey, we want to give something a little bit back more to Toyota. How can I get a fan, or how can I get my season ticket holders really engaging with the brand, as well as, again, every time a goal is scored, if I look at that rink board, I see my name on there, and every time a player goes over and taps the rink board on that side, I'm going to get that good feeling. So I think segmenting into those two, but then hopefully some of the activations carry on. I mean, to your all point, the dining sort of card, maybe you didn't think of that before, but now that could be a staple every time to really highlight your partners. So I'm excited for whatever we build today is just going to make us better down the road, because it's going to be really helpful inventory that we can add to our arsenal. And whether it's, again, I used to work in sports, off season is a whirlwind, and then season starts and you're working 80 to 90 hour weeks. Sometimes we don't have time to really think about these things. And now it's kind of the perfect time to do a little bit of thinking, find some activations and assets that hopefully make it easier next season to drive more revenue, just because we actually had the time to kind of think about it.
That's correct.
Awesome. Well, I think that's about it. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. John, thanks so much for jumping on, asking questions, and giving feedback. Excited to hopefully how this can help some people drive some revenue and get through this. I think overall, if you really look at sports, people assume that the majority of sports that get the highlights are, only about 1/4 of the total sports market. I mean, there's, I think, over 180 minor league baseball teams. There's, over 80 minor league hockey teams. I think that, hopefully some of these tactics really help more so the teams that really need it, rather than, not saying that the Minnesota Vikings don't need to have cash flow and revenue, but they're going to be a little bit better off. And in the same way I think about restaurant partners, of those small mom and pop ones, I also think about some of the minor league teams. It's, hopefully none of them go under because of this, but hopefully some of these ideas are just ways that they can help and engage in all of that. So thanks for sharing some of your thoughts and how you all are kind of getting through it.
Absolutely. Appreciate the time, Nick, and hopefully we can catch up soon.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks so much, John.
All right. Take care.